Alright, well, we're back again for another session of coloring on the 7th grade project. We should be able to make extraordinary progress today, I am thinking, since we have only got a few squares left of just doing the coloring portion of this. So, since that's the case, we should just get back to doing what we got going here. When we left off at the last session, we were working on that olive green, or that jade green as they call it in the Crayola color pencil kit. And so what we've been doing, of course, if you have been paying attention, is we're using these various those 10 colors that we use to create our alphabet that we are spelling a message of using this alphabet. And that message is: an ounce of prevention is greater than a pound of cure. And it is all modeled on an alphabet that we use in the 6th grade of flags from the Navy and ocean-going vessels. So that's where all of this has evolved from. So we're going to stick to the colors that we put on our worksheet, and we'll put that off screen, but we're going to reference it frequently. And then I'm going to use a piece of index card to set my hand on so that I don't smudge my work too bad. When you're working on stuff like this, that's always a real possibility, and you get a lot of dirt and oil and grime on the back of your hand, and it can really be detrimental to the beauty of your artwork if you are not careful about that. So one of the things I recommend to people is to get an index card or a piece of drawing paper, or any sort of paper really, as long as it's not filthy, and put it underneath your hand so that it does two things. It shields your work, but it also reminds you that it's there so that you remember to move it around as well. And so it can really make your colors a lot brighter if you don't pollute them by putting the dirt on the back of your hand all over your artwork. Alright, so I got a little mileage out of that jade green there before I have to resharpen it again. I think it was left over from the last session still. Alright, that looks pretty good. So we're just going to keep working at this. And yesterday, or the last session, excuse me, was we got 3.5 of the letters done. So with any luck today, we can push on through a lot of this, and we should, in the next 2 sessions, I would think, at the rate we're going, the coloring should be done. We should be able to outline it accurately and finish it up and get it prepared for grading. So since projects generally take between 10 and 11 days anyhow, we're not behind schedule in any way or manner. We're simply doing careful work quickly, and it seems to me that the more I do this, the better I get at it. So I'm predicting that the same thing should be occurring for the students out there in the e-classroom if they're watching these videos. So it won't be long till we will be able to finish this up and move on to the next unit, and that next unit is traditionally drawing. Now, we do design work first because it's the oldest form of known art making for humans. There's disputes about it, but the information I've read leads me to believe that it started about 76,000 years ago in Iceland, and also in South Africa. There are caves along the seashores in South Africa dating back to about 76,000 years, and they use the same types of markings and as the object that we have referenced before in Iceland. And so this idea of putting a line down very much like this, there's all these lines, and then they have these X's on them, and these X's touch and form diamond shapes. And so this marking is seen throughout the world in ancient cultures for some reason, and that's what leads us to believe it's some sort of a calendar of some sort, because it seems to have regular markings on it indicating, the passing of the days perhaps, and then the passing of the weeks. Who knows what those mean? But the fact that there's found, they were objects using those markings were found in Iceland dating back about 76,000 years, and also the fact that those markings are on the walls of caves in South Africa from about the same time. Those two cultures, I don't see how they could have ever met. They're separated by thousands of miles of ocean and also thousands of miles of land masses in between them. So I don't see how they could have ever met. So I think it's something that's in our human brain. These markings are in our mind for some reason, and they just naturally, ancient prehistoric mankind probably was just responding to what seems to be a natural mark that they made to indicate the passing of time, I suppose. That's all I can figure. But what is fascinating is that in separate cultures on opposite ends of the world, the people that long ago were still making those types of markings. And as you can see, they've evolved a great deal over the years, but they're not unlike the markings that we are making now in our project here in the 21st century. So those markings have come a long ways. You will see them throughout the world if you are the visual world, that is, if you're perceptive. So when you're looking around at things, we've already got that marking right there, this horizontal marking like this. So it shows up a lot. You just have to be perceptive about the world around you and be a person who looks at things carefully rather than a person who just never sees any of the details or notices any commonalities between circumstances or environments or cultures, in fact. Okay, I'm going back and trying to just address any of the little opacity problems I may have along the way here, but I like to be done with a square and move on. It drives me crazy to have to constantly go back and dress up things that I've already spent time working on. But that's just my method of working. I suppose there are other methods of working, but it wouldn't work for me. So I like to get it done and move on. Okay, now we could move on to this letter N, but it's complicated and takes a while, so I think we're going to just skip down a road to the letter F down here. And I look at my worksheet, and my letter F right here with the magenta in the middle, the yellow-green on the top right and lower left, and then the light blue. And it's also ironic because we have one right up here, so we can simply look at this as our guide. And if it's colored attractively, then we can follow that. Now I'm going to erase the letter F out of here so it doesn't show through my work. Try to dress up any of these dots that might show through my coloring there. Maybe touch up a little of the markings. And of course dust it off so you don't have any filth on there. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah. Okay, now fix that up a bit because it messes with me. Maybe erase this down here at the bottom too. It kind of messes with me too. Okay. Touch that up a bit and drive on with the coloring. Alright, it's time to move on here. Let's see, we've got magenta in the middle, and I'm going to make good use of that colored pencil. There's still a little bit of it left in there, so I have not yet, even after all these sessions, I've not yet broke a colored pencil off, and I gotta say I'm pretty proud of that. So I'm trying to use a 24 color pencil kit and do all the projects that the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are doing here as an e-learning operation, and I've got so far been pretty successful with the set of colored pencils I am using. So I'm getting pretty good results, but also I don't get too greedy. I'm trying not to over sharpen the pencil, just make sure it has a working point on it that is sturdy so that when I bear down on it, it doesn't immediately break. if you spend all your time sharpening a colored pencil, then you're probably not coloring anything. And all you're really doing is shortening the pencil. So I would get a good working point on it and then get to work coloring with it. Alright, so I'm trying to do this kind of random scribble technique that I've been talking about a lot. I think it really does make the project come out nicer. But in the meantime there, I'm also wearing down my pencil. I may have to slow down a moment and sharpen it up. But this project is coming along quite nicely, by the way. It's colorful. It's got a good variety of colors in it. The message is interesting, and it uses a lot of the different characters that we have in our alphabet. Alright, I do need to sharpen up. And so that makes it also visually interesting. It's not the same characters repeated numerous times over. And there have been projects where that's been a bit of a problem. Some of the more complicated letters were even just never appeared in the project. And so, you know, we spend all that time kind of making the worksheet. So I tried to pick out a message that had a good variety of letters in it. And that should help us when we come to the next project, which is going to be a drawing project, a perspective project. And probably, well, traditionally we drew a one-point perspective drawing of a city. So that is a good probability. What we'll do, if you watch the Rules and Expectations video, then you saw some of the examples of some of the projects we've done as 7th graders. And one of them is the watercolor painting of the perspective drawing of the city, which we draw together, and then you draw, you know, along with me, and then when we are done with it, through any luck and any desire to do a good job on the part of the person doing the drawing, then you'll come out with an attractive city, and you will also have learned how to do one-point perspective in probably its most simple form. However, it's not easily learned. Some people struggle with it, but if you do learn how to do perspective, 1, 2, multi-point perspective, then it will transform the way you make drawings. It will also transform the way you see the world. It was a major evolution in art. It had always been there, just no one discovered it. Just like, you know, the Europeans didn't know that there was North America. It had always been there, they just didn't know about it. And then they discovered it for themselves. The people who lived there had already discovered it. So this is coming along relatively quickly, but these 4 corners may take a little while. And then this letter C has got some colors in it too, but I think that's the first time we've used letter C. It sure is, so we'll have to reference our worksheet when we get that part and see what it looks like. So I hope you're not snapping all the points of your pencils off. I hope you are actually able to make that colored pencil color every single microgram of how much pencil lead it's got in it, all the way down until you just run out of it. When I first started working at Warner, we had very few supplies, and we had to sharpen those colored pencils down all the way till they were maybe about a ½ an inch long. Had to hold them with pliers and use X-Acto knives to color them, to shave them down to where we could still use them. And I still have some of those in the drawer at my desk, just to remember the old days. That was a long time ago now, but I will say this, they had to grip it with just their fingertips and try to color with it, and sometimes that was not so easy. Alright, this is looking pretty good. Alright. Alright, now I'm just looking for my lack of opacity, my little white skip over areas. I don't see any of them. So, I think I can move on now. So I look up here at my other one, and I've got that yellow-green in the upper right and lower left, and I've still got some lead on this one, so I'll simply start there. And see, this project is now starting to develop, and it seems like, well, it seems like a long time ago, I suppose, in the mind of a student, but it was just a few days ago we started this project. And so if you've been keeping up with the instruction and drawing and coloring at the same rate that I am, then I guess what you're finding out is that this can be done in the allotted amount of time of 10 to 11 days. However, that seems like a lot of time in the mind of a middle schooler, and many times they will not be productive with their work, and that's how about 1/3 of the class manages to never complete a project. So if you want to complete the project, and art is a graded subject, then you just got to stay focused. And it's actually quite meditative to color, and it's good for the mind too. It's a good thinking activity to draw. I'm surprised we don't have more art classes at Warner. Seems like it would be a good idea. That looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to move on down here to this other portion of the yellow-green. Try to get every scrap of colored pencil used up on there, so I don't have to continuously spend my time sharpening pencils, which I preach about a lot. However, it's important. I wouldn't talk about it if it wasn't ridiculously vital. Okay, now when you're working close to the edge of the paper, you have to be really, really careful. I like to try to trim up a little bit of a margin there along the edge, so that when I do color a little bit more quickly, I don't grab the edge of that paper with my pencil and then tear it, which is kind of bad for the beauty of your work. Tape never really looks all that good on a piece of artwork, I've noticed. And it really doesn't fix anything, it just puts tape on there. So I guess my advice is don't mess up if you can avoid it, and practice some habits that will allow you to color fast but with good quality. And it looks like I'm making some pretty good time here suddenly. So that would be, we're closing in on being done with this one too. So I'm looking for any areas where I've had little skip overs. Go back, seal them down, and move on to the next color. So in this case that would be this light blue color. Now there is no point on this one, so I have to sharpen up. Well, that's a little pointy. That's more than I usually do. But I'm going to have to live with it because I really can't put it back. So I'm going to have to be very gentle first here. Okay. So when we get to our next unit, we'll be using a great number of the shapes that we've spent time drawing in here. So we'll be making diamond shapes and of course circles or curved objects as well in our town. And so we'll be studying foreshortening as well, which is the idea that things get larger as they get closer to you, like a soccer ball. It's small at one end of the field, but right before it hits you in the face, it appears to be pretty large. So we're going to be working with that phenomenon too, how things that are farther away appear to be smaller. And we do a lot of this vertical, horizontal, diagonal lines. So that's why we're working on it now in the design unit, so that you're familiar with how these markings are made, and then when we use them in a different orientation or for a different purpose, then you will be able to clearly see why it was important to do this project. So at the beginning of the your art education. So we always go design, drawing, and then painting when we have art for either a quarter or a semester. Alright, progress. Being made rapidly, actually. Okay, dress up those little skipped over spots. Don't see too many. And I did not snap off the lead, although I had it sharper than I normally like it. So, the gentle but firm touch, I was able to get it to color down. Alright, looks good. I'm just going to keep on keeping on here. I think we'll do the letter, its next door neighbor here in just a minute. And we'll just keep on pushing our progress. And each day, you just have to get through it. And the more time you spend in production, the less time you spend in addressing problems and rushing against your deadline, which almost never makes for good work. Being under time pressure to get your work done is not normally conducive. It means it doesn't make it happen. It's not good for your creativity. And putting yourself under stress like that too it's just simply not necessary. You can finish the projects in the time that is given to you or allotted for the class. But if you can't, then it's difficult when we're doing group lessons for everyone to move on at the same time. So I guess it's important sometimes that you have to just work on, shut everybody else out for a little while and work on your project, and then go back to talking and socializing, perhaps in some other class besides art class. Okay, the letter F came around pretty quick there. And so I think it's just what we call the learning curve in action. That would be the idea that when you learn something the first time, it's complicated, and then as you practice it more and more, they see what I'm doing there? I'm grabbing the edge of that paper just like I told you not to. But the learning curve, you know it's there because you notice you're able to make complicated work at a faster rate. That's what that's all about. Alright, the letter C, right next door neighbor here. Let's see what we've got. Okay, it's a brown stripe, aqua stripes, and then orange at the top and bottom. So I guess I would start with the one color, the brown, the darker brown first. So I'm going to slide that off. It looks like I've got a little bit of the dark brown left. I better erase this letter out before I forget it. Alright, that's good. Dust it. Okay. Now I'm not going to erase that little pencil mark because this dark brown should cover it. My dark brown still has a little bit of lead ready to color with, so I'm just going to go ahead and make good use of my materials and constantly be rolling that pencil around in my fingertips so that I can keep the sharp corner on it there when I need exact precision. Although I think at this point I am going to have to resharpen this brown colored pencil. I guess I will. Alright, I should be able to finish out this stripe and have some brown colored pencil left for the next time I need it. So in the physical classroom, everybody's in the groove together. You're all on a regular schedule back at the school building, and we tend to get a lot of work done in a short period of time, but that's all because you're in the habit of coming in and picking out your folder and having a seat and either getting right to work if that's if we're working on projects, or awaiting some sort of instruction if we're having quizzes or doing grading. So it's what you're experiencing right now is a is very much just like being in the physical classroom, as I call it. If you're making it up, it's still very much like being in the physical classroom if you're applying yourself to it. Okay, I love that brown, rich. I've got to address all my little opacity issues there, since I've got the brown colored pencil in my hand right now. Looks pretty good. Okay, now above that and below it is aqua green. So this stripe and this stripe are aqua green. So just keep at it. I'm trying to vary that color, so the strike marks that my color pencil leaves. So it smooths it out if you use this random effect. That's what I know. Alright, we are getting some pretty good combinations of colors here too. I think the brown and the aqua kind of go together pretty nicely. It reminds me of like water flowing next to a riverbank or something like that, above the wood line, a lake above the woods, or the lake shore off in the distance. So colors have very powerful psychological meanings and emotional meanings as well. So over the years, and this is something a nice parlor game at points in time, to kind of ask, what do the colors mean to people? What does yellow mean? What does red mean? And blue and purple and green? And so all of these colors have got meanings to them, and people use them to help communicate messages to each other. And so, like if you were to use a heart, and a heart is red, then it's passionate, it's love. If it's yellow, it's scared and timid. If it is frightened, in fact. If it is green, it's envious and jealous. So those kinds. If it's purple, it's wounded and sad. If it's blue, it's lonely. So it's all of these colors can really take something as simple as just a shape of a heart and transform it into a meaning. So color is very powerful, especially if you use it right. Okay, this looks pretty good, I gotta say. Okay. Address the opacity issues. Don't see any. And I'm going to have to resharpen in a moment here, but I'm going to continue on with my aqua green because I like that color. And that's what it shows on the worksheet anyhow. So our alphabet sheet is the whole reason we spent some time to make it up, is so it would speed this along and reduce errors. We're trying to not have flaws that we have to go back and fix, and sometimes those flaws are not easily corrected. If you miss a letter of the alphabet, or you color it in wrong and it's been used already and it was done properly, you will find that you have to take scissors and cut your artwork apart and put a new square in its place and then draw it right and color it, and yeah, you've lost a lot. That's like 10 minutes of time or 15 minutes of time by the time you're done with that whole operation. So it's really just better to plan your work out. And I'm big on planning work, so I think a lot of you are aware of that. Alright, we're moving on. Today it seems like we're making a little better progress this session. Okay. Just about the time you're almost done with the project, that's when you start really getting in the groove. This orange and aqua color reminds me of Florida sunrises and the color of the Gulf of Mexico. The place Pensacola and Navarro Beach and Clearwater. Those are all. Destin is a place that I'm sure some of you are aware of, or Panama Beach is also along that area. So these are places that have got beautiful water, and the sunsets are orange and pink colors. So whenever I see aqua and orange together, it makes me think of the Gulf Coast of Florida. I think Sarasota is over there. Tampa is on the Gulf Coast of Florida. The whole Gulf Coast is very attractive. Of course, you get hit by hurricanes down there, and that's not so good. But every place has got its drawbacks. We have tornadoes and blizzards here, right? So, but people still live here. Alright, it's coming together very quickly on the letter C. Checking out for all my opacity issues, sealing it down, looking for all the little white specks where the color pencil is skipped over. And looks like I got it pretty much there. Alright, I'm hoping there's still some orange left on my orange colored pencil, and it doesn't look like there is, so I have to sharpen that and finish this letter. And you know what, I might just move on to that letter U, because it's a simpler letter also. And then I can, if I have orange, I'll just put it in the letter N above it whenever I use the colors. So sometimes if you're organized, you can maybe, especially at this point in time in the project, you might be able to work on more than one square at a time. But if you get confused, see, then you end up with problems, and you really can't stay organized. So for students, I would normally say just go along one square at a time. But if you are confident and you're making good progress, maybe experiment with other speedier ways to do your production, which is to maybe work on more than one letter with the same colored pencil in your hand. But that's why it's important to have the worksheet, so that you can reference it if you're trying to do that, and you don't have to kind of rely on memory, which I've noticed is kind of tricky sometimes. Alright, this is coming together fast. I remember a few days ago, it's like we didn't even have a project yet. So for those of you participating and keeping up, you're probably starting to notice that it won't be long till we'll have this thing finished. Because even if you only make 3.5 squares every day, well, then if you did that every day, you'd have to get, and you had 8 days to get the project done, you'd end up getting done, because you'd have 24 squares. At 3 squares a day is 8 days. So it's totally possible to do these things, but I don't like being up against a deadline like that. Okay, moving on to the bottom portion here. Let's get it going too. Alright. I'm going to wear out that orange colored pencil here again. So I'm noticing there's a pretty good distribution and variety of colors in this piece of artwork, and that makes it really kind of nice. And I'm hoping that with your alphabet, you didn't stick to like the same 3 colors, because then your artwork will be dominated by 3 colors, and it might even be hard to understand what it's trying to communicate. But let's hope you used a wide variety of colors, and that's probably going to help you get this project is going to be something you want to keep. If it's all dominated by purple and dark brown, it's going to be a little bit difficult to even read. Okay, I'm going to get up against this blue here. This is a bit high-risk operation. Got to be careful that you don't snag that blue and smear it into the orange, which will cause some sort of strange green to occur, I would imagine. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright. Mhm. Finishing up on our 2.5 square. I think I'll try to put something down for the letter U there. Make it like 3 on the day, I suppose. But 3 every day. It looks like that would, at the rate we're going, we'll have a couple more days of this. So I'm going to go ahead and start the letter U, so that I will be part of the way there when I get back on session tomorrow. I'll erase this letter out of there. And I don't see that we've used the letter U in this project yet. And so we should consult our worksheet. And in this case, the letter U, oh, it's 4 different colors. So I think I'll just start with that aqua green, which is already sharpened, and put it up here in the upper left-hand corner. And then when I get back tomorrow, I'll use this dark brown. So I'm pre-tagging these. And then the magenta, and then the light blue as well. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that aqua though today during this particular session. I'll move that off the camera. And I gotta say, I can see the finish line approaching for this project. So if it was a marathon, we'd be about, I'd say about maybe 19 or 20 miles done by now. That's always, some people say that's the hardest part of a 26-mile race. These last few miles, tired, a lot of discomfort, thirsty, sore, emotionally exhausted. Alright, very good progress, even though we're looking at about 3 squares today too, or 3 letters today as well. Finished this one, did these 2, and we're starting another one. So I'd say that puts us right around like 3 letters. So we have less than 2 days of production left. If we keep at the same production rate when we return in the next session here.